Ken Trahan, Lenny Vangilder. It's our first NBC Bank weekend review, and it was a pretty good weekend overall. The Saints with a huge win over the Falcons ended their unbeaten skid, or rather their unbeaten streak, I should say, and the Saints, of course, now still in the picture for a wild card spot. Lenny, the final wild card spot in the NFC is attainable.
It really is at this point. I mean, you would think that someone in the NFC North is going to be a wild card. Whoever doesn't win the division is probably going to be a wild card, Chicago, Green Bay. But that last spot, I mean, you certainly is attainable at this point. As we talked about prior to Sunday's game, you're in the midst of this key stretch right here that you've really got to survive. You know, it's a 5-week stretch with some very tough opposition, 2 against Atlanta, 1 against the Giants, 1 against San Francisco in there, that if you can, at worst, go 3-2 in that, better yet, go 4-1 or 5-0, you're in good position because those last 3 games, one of which will be against Dallas, might be one of the teams you're contending with for the 6th spot, are certainly all winnable games. Well,
the defense, I mean, no one would confuse them with being outstanding, but they're certainly playing better, in particular in the red zone. Offensively, they're running the ball much better now.
They really are. And what is interesting is Chris Ivory has played the last 2 weeks, and he's been outstanding and certainly a fan favorite, just like, you know, the old story goes that the favorite player on any team is the backup quarterback, except New Orleans is the backup running back because nobody's trying to get Drew Brees out of here, obviously. But the interesting part to me is how much better Mark Ingram has been the last 2 weeks. This is the first time in his career he's averaged 4 yards a carry in back-to-back games in these 2 weeks when Chris Ivory was also on the field.
No question. So the Saints go to Oakland. The Raiders, a very winnable game, long trip, but against a team that's really struggling and had a very tough time yesterday. LSU took care of business. I was impressed with the way they rebounded and took care of their business against Mississippi State.
Really so. And it was funny. I mentioned at the quarterback club today about a team that didn't take care of business coming out of that game in Alabama, and A&M just took it to Alabama, which has thrown the BCS and all kinds of craziness. But LSU certainly getting the job done against, you know, a good Mississippi State team. Hey, this team was 7-0 17 days ago. Well, now they're 7-3, but it's still a good team, and it was a tough challenge. Now you got to face Ole Miss this week, Arkansas, and then we'll see where the chips fall in terms of the bowl picture.
I believe LSU is going to run the table, and I think they'll get a very good bowl game as a result. They're a good team. Jarvis Landry really stepping up. Zach Mettenberger continues to play well. It's a pretty good to very good football team, and people are going to lament that loss to Alabama. Tulane, of course, lost on the road at Memphis, and now listen, I mean, what are you going to say? If Ryan Griffin doesn't have a great game, they're not going to win.
Well, and the thing you look at in these last 2 games, the common thread that has killed Tulane is turnovers. They played really well in those 2 weeks, putting together, you know, those wins against SMU, and then the other win as well. But the last 2 weeks against Rice, against Memphis, 10 turnovers. And Tulane does not have much margin for error. 10 turnovers is not going to get it done. Yeah, they took it away 3 times. Darian Monroe returned one to the house for a touchdown, but still, you got to handle a football, and you can't be making mistakes if you're Tulane.
High school playoffs continue this weekend, regional round. We'll have full analysis at sportsnola.com. You might want to check it out. Congratulations to Carlos Henderson at McDonough 35, our player of the week. And finally, the Hornets, coming off of a win Friday night, back in action on Wednesday again at Houston.
And, you know, another big one Friday night at home against the defending Western Conference champions in Oklahoma City. So, you know, this has been a reasonably difficult stretch in the early season for the Hornets in terms of who they're going to play here in the first 15, 20 games of the season. And Charlotte wasn't as good. You know, Philadelphia, you can, you know, throw that one out with all of the injuries they had. But, you know, a key stretch nonetheless here. If the Hornets can, you know, string some things together and get some confidence, you know, in the early season, you never know what might happen.
Lenny, as always, thanks for the visit, and we'll do it again on Friday.
Yeah, see you then.
All right, for Lenny Vangilder, I'm Ken Trahan, our First NBC Weekend Review, courtesy of First NBC Bank. For First NBC Bank, I'm Ken Trahan. Have a great week.